I work the midnight shift at a radio station. But these insane rules haunt me. The clock ticked ominously towards midnight, and the air crackled with tension. Doug had taken the graveyard shift at KLRX, the tiny radio station buried in the woods outside town. A faint orange glow spilled from the station's sign, casting eerie shadows in every corner. But it wasn't the hour or the darkness that unsettled him. It was the whispered rules of the midnight shift that danced in his mind. The ones everyone warned him about, but dared not explain. They were meant to keep the station running. Yet Doug couldn't shake the feeling they were also meant to keep something hidden. A peculiar chill crawled down his spine as he flipped switches and dialed knobs, the static on the radio hissing like a serpent. The first strange rule had been easy to follow. Never play music after midnight. Simple enough, he had only to run the station's news feed and weather updates. But as the minutes dragged on, wrestling with the thick, uncomfortable silence, Doug couldn't help but wonder what happened if he did. Soon after, the station's old Abraham Lincoln statue, perched squarely in the corner, seemed to shift ever so slightly. He rubbed his eyes, a knot of uncertainty tightening in his stomach. No one believes the rumors they told him. Rumors of people gone missing, voices carrying through the walls, and strange, ghastly whispers rattling through the night. Few had dared to stick around long enough to figure it out, but Doug couldn't do what they did. He needed to make rent. Panic settled in as the clock struck 12. A low, almost imperceptible static began to rise from the speakers, like a heartbeat pulsing to life. Suddenly, everything felt alive, walls pulsing, shadows creeping, and that itchy feeling of being washed over him. He gulped hard, feeling that lump rise in his throat as he tried to shake it off, but it was no use. The hairs on the back of his neck bristled. Something was indeed out there. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the static crescendoed, Doug's hands trembled over the control panel. The lights flickered, a low hum vibrating in the air, nearly dousing him with dread as he glanced towards the entrance. The air grew thick with an energy he could hardly comprehend. It hit him, then a pulse of urgency that reminded him of why he was truly here. What lay ahead? Was the legend of a voice trapped between worlds real? The idea clawed at his mind, begging for him to explore the forbidden. Suddenly, a voice crystal clear and chilling burst forth from the speakers, drowning Doug in an icy wave of fear. "Help me," it echoed, scratching at his sanity. Was it a trick of the night? Or had he crossed a line he couldn't return from? Darkness swirled around him as he weighed his options. Doug's heart raced, pounding in his chest like a drum. The voice hung in the air, chilling his blood, and for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a summons, pulling him in, demanding, pleading. "Help me." The intensity wrapped around him like an invisible cloak, heavy and suffocating. He stared at the control panel, his fingers itching to hit the off switch. Fear clashed with curiosity as the horrifying reality of his situation struck him. What if someone really needed help? The thought sliced through his panic, clawing at the very core of his fear. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to stay put, obey the rules, and not play music, but this wasn't team music. This was a cry. A shallow breath escaped his lips. He leaned closer, straining to catch any hint of familiar sound. Static crackled again, dark and ominous, drowning out everything. But then, a freeze of clarity. Listen, was that his imagination? The air thickened, layered with a growing desperation that reverberated off the walls. He was no longer alone in the station. An unseen presence had joined him, and it terrified him. Would he become another one of those missing souls? The statue's gaze bore down on him, as if judging his next move. Gritting his teeth against the growing dread, Doug made his decision. He reached for the mic, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "If anyone is there, if you need help, please, talk to me." The words spilled out of him like a floodgate breaking, raw and unedited. He could barely hear his own voice above the gathering storm in his mind. Silence stretched, thick and electric, swallowing him whole. He glanced around, searching for movement in the shadows. The light flickered again, and the intensity of the atmosphere surged. Then, to his horror, the voice returned, deeper this time, more forceful. "Find me." The urge to run clawed at him, but something rooted him to the chair. He had to know more. He was the trusted custodian of secrets, after all. Gathering his nerve, he clicked on the station's emergency broadcast system against every instinct screeching in his head, and his blood ran cold as the dials whirred to life. It wasn't he supposed to activate. The station only had 2 emergency channels, and the one that was lighting up like a neon sign now didn't belong to them. "Listen," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you need?" As he spoke, the static morphed, turning erratic, the sound thickening with layers of tortured emotion. Ghostly images swirled in his mind, shadows of faces blinking in and out. Sinners begging for forgiveness, victims crying for justice. Doug's gut twisted as a sickening realization set in. They weren't directing him to help. They were losing him into an abyss of despair. This wasn't just a cry for assistance. It was an invitation to share their pain. Before he could think, the lights flickered once more. The overhead fluorescent bulbs burst, showering the room in darkness just as the radio crackled violently with a new voice, angry and fierce. "You've broken the rules, Doug. Now you must pay." Chills coursed down his spine, and he felt trapped, the walls themselves inching closer. Was he going to end like the others? Silenced forever? Doug's breath quickened, panic threatening to consume him whole, yet in the depths of despair, determination ignited. "I need to understand. I need to know." The haunting question hung in the air. What had he unleashed? Lightning cracked outside, illuminating the room, revealing the statue now grotesquely twisted, a hideous grin etched on its stone face. The atmosphere crackled with raw energy, and in that moment, Doug knew he had to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. But would he? As the voice taunted him again, he braced for the inevitable. The air thickened like molasses, pressing down on Doug as he dared to muster a breath. "You must pay." The chilling words echoing in his ears felt like chains tightening around his throat. What had he stepped into? The static hummed anew, a maddening symphony of despair that clawed at his sanity. Shadows shifted across the walls, their shapes contorting into grotesque forms that seemed to dance mockingly in the flickering light. Doug's heart raced, his instincts screaming at him to escape, to run from the torment unfurling before him. "Please," he whispered, more of a plea than a command. "What do you want?" The voice surged back, drowning his quiet desperation. "Your soul is the key." Doug blinked, a wave of nausea crashing over him. His hands trembled against the desk, fingers white as he gripped onto the edge. The radio crackled, twisting with the lost voices of the damned. This wasn't just a station anymore. It was a conduit, a gateway between worlds. The power flickered again, and Doug clenched his jaw, refusing to yield to fear. "I won't give in," he shouted, louder this time. "If you want me, show yourself." His curiosity simmered with dread, a dangerous cocktail that urged him deeper into the shadows. If summoned by his defiance, the temperature plummeted. His breath fogged before him in a ghostly cloud. A low growl reverberated through the room, shaking the console as cold fingers grazed his neck. Doug jumped back, his heart hammering fiercely against his ribs. Too late, the voice boomed, echoing from the very walls, the sound layered with 100 tormented cries. The lights surged and flickered, transforming into a strobe of chaos. He saw them, then translucent figures rising from the ground, their faces twisted in anguish, mouths moving but no sound emerging. They were trapped. In that moment, Doug realized they hadn't reached out to him for help. They were here to drag him into their torment. "No," he shouted, backing away until he collided with the cold surface of the radio desk. "Join us," they moaned, the chilling harmony seeping into his bones. "You were chosen." Heat swelled at his core, mingling with mounting terror, and Doug's pulse echoed in his ears. He could either submit, become just another lost whisper, or fight back against this darkness. The choice stung his ego, lacing it with urgency. With every ounce of willpower, he grabbed the mic again, determination crackling in his voice. I'm not afraid of you. I will fight. A shudder cascaded down his spine as he steeled himself against the onslaught of despair surging from every corner of the room. Fight! The voice roared, disbelief thick as fog. Fight me? A pulsating wave of energy surged through the air, slamming Doug back against the chair. The figures lurched forward, the ground beneath him feeling like it was fracturing. Just as he thought it would consume him whole, a different sound pierced the chaos of faint, desperate whisper crawling out from the depths. Help me before it's too late. His mind raced. Who was that? Could there be a chance among the despair? Doug's heart teetered on a precipice. With urgency harmonizing with hope, he gathered it all. I will help, he said firmly. Just show me. The temperature shifted, the shadows morphing into one singular form, its face obscured. The grip of the dark forces tightened ominously, but Doug felt a spark igniting his resolve. What have you done, Doug? Came the voice, softer now. Yet the warning loomed like a storm cloud. You've meddled where none should tread. The shadows swirled violently, and Doug braced for the fallout realities clashing, teeth-gritting moments boiling to a climax. In that instant, he realized that the battle was far from over. Would he uncover the truth of those trapped souls? Or would he, too, fall to darkness like the others before him? As the air thickened with malevolence, a scream echoed, drowning everything what would come next. The world shifted abruptly, twisting and warping around Doug as he clung to the mic like a lifeline. The oppressive shadows screamed whispers in his ear, begging him to surrender, to drift into their waiting arms. But he stood firm, heart racing like the engines of a runaway freight train. Show yourself, he shouted, fighting back against the living shadow that swallowed the room. His voice sounded small against the chaos, yet something in him sparked a flicker of light. Suddenly, the air vibrated with a power that could bend steel. Doug's hands clenched tight, nails digging into his palms as he glimpsed the figure emerging from the darkness, a silhouette coiling like smoke. Hauntingly beautiful, yet dripping with anguish. It held an impossible allure that tugged at his sanity, pulling him toward a gaping void. You cannot escape, echoed the voice, the room vibrating as it shifted from booming anger to a sinister lull. The pulsating figure expanded, surrounding him, almost suffocating. Doug felt closer to the truth, and yet further than ever. Who are you? He gasped, his breath escaping him, each syllable a tiny rebellion against the overwhelming pressure. With that question, the creature froze, and the room fell into a haunting silence, the shadows holding their breath. A moment later, a word escaped its lips, dry and raspy as if tearing through countless years of torment. Cassandra, the name buzzed in Doug's mind. He racked his memory, searching for traces of who Cassandra might be. But it wouldn't yield easily, fleeing as quickly as it came. What happened to her? He pressed on, desperation punctuating his voice. Trapped, the figure wailed, sorrow wrapping itself around the word. You must free her or join us. It swirled around him for effect, ice-cold tendrils brushing against Doug's skin. He realized, perhaps too late, that every ounce of fear he carried was a part of this ordeal, dragging him deeper into its clutches that he steeled himself, refusing to be another lost soul. And how do I free Cassandra? Doug challenged, fighting the panic gnawing at him from within. Through the airwaves the figure hissed, its shape flickering like a dying flame. You are the key. But be warned, the cost is great. Panic clawed at Doug's throat as he realized that every second he lingered here, fighting or negotiating, pushed him closer to the brink. What is it going to take? He shouted, each word emerging with strained urgency. You will lose what you hold dear, your sanity, your memories. The shadows began swirling more violently, threatening to overwhelm him, as if daring him to turn back. Bring it on. His defiance surged, drowning in reckless determination. Doug's heart raced faster than the shadows as he shouted, I can handle whatever you throw at me. But the figure shrieked, a sound that ricocheted through the dark space. Then accept your fate. Let it begin. For an instant, the world stood still in eerie silence, suspended in disbelief before the shadow ripped apart, and Doug was bathed in an agonizing burst of light that he gasped, feeling memories he never knew he had slipped through his fingers like sand, leaving nothing behind but an emptiness that echoed. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life, the oppressive dark receding. Cassandra, a voice chirped out, static-laden, desperate. Doug, do you hear me? It was faint, but undeniably there a thread of hope against the staggering despair. "Where are you?" Doug shouted, the shift around him electric with urgency. "A mile from you, in the old woods, but hurry. They are coming." The shadows began regrouping, feverishly closing around him again. Doug's heart thundered an unyielding beat, urging him to move. He had to choose, to save Cassandra or risk everything for information that could destroy him. Time ticked dangerously fast as darkness clawed back, twisting the very air. What was waiting for him in the woods? Would he be a savior or another lost whisper? The room trembled under the pressure of his decision. "Run," the voice urged, before the radio buzzed into silence. The only thing left was the suffocating dark, closing in. But how fast could he escape the shadows that had already claimed so many? Doug's heart pounded louder than the static that crackled through the radio, urging him forward toward the door. The darkness slithered at his feet, flicking like a live wire with a malicious intent. He had no time to think about what might happen when he stepped into the woods, only that he had to go now. He burst through the door, the hinges squealing like a banshee as he stumbled out into the night. Cool air filled his lungs, yet it did little to quiet the chaos inside his head. The woods loomed on the edge of town, dark and threatening, every tree a towering sentinel watching his every move. "Just a mile," he whispered under his breath, pushing himself faster down the winding road, each step building pressure behind his eyes. What if Cassandra was already gone? What if she had fallen into the hands of whatever had captured her? The shadows were relentless, scrambling behind him, and part of him feared their grip was beginning to tighten around his chest. As he reached the treeline, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt electric, charged with an unseen force that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. A breeze rustled the leaves above, whispering secrets he couldn't grasp. Doug hesitated, eyes scanning the darkness. The woods felt alive, the sounds of rustling creatures amplified by the silence surrounding him. "Doug!" she yelled suddenly from somewhere deeper in the trees. It was faint but unmistakable. "Help me. I'm here." That was all he needed. He plunged into the thicket, chest tight as he dodged branches clawing at him like gnarled hands. The moss underfoot made each step treacherously slippery, but he pressed on, spirit ignited by the fear of losing her forever. "Cassandra?" he shouted, voice cracking. Each call felt like a beacon into the black void, a desperate plea to draw her close. It was no longer just a mission, it was personal. He couldn't let another soul slip into the shadows. The underbrush crackled violently, making Doug freeze mid-step. His instincts screamed to run, but he forced himself to listen. A chill crawled down his spine. The air became thick with dread, shrouding him in menacing anticipation. "Cassandra!" he called again, more fiercely this time. Suddenly, the shadows parted like a curtain, unveiling a clearing illuminated by an eerie glow. It flickered and flowed like water, alive with shifting shapes. Doug's heart went icy as he stepped forward, realizing it formed into a mosaic of lost souls, their faces contorted in agony, eyes pleading. "No," he gasped, backing away only to trip on a gnarled root and tumble to the ground. The shadow figures shifted closer, breath hot and heavy, as whispers circled around him, calling out in a chorus of mourning. His throat tightened. This wasn't just a rescue, this was a descent into hell. "Cassandra!" he cried one last time, heart racing wildly. If she was in any of those figures, he would never forgive himself. Then, through the moans, a figure seemed to break free from the mass, stepping into the faint light. It was her Cassandra. Her face looked ghostly, almost translucent, eyes wide with panic. Before he could say anything, a dark shape shot from the surrounding shadows, darting between the spectral figures with unnatural speed. "Doug, look out!" she shouted, but it was too late. The creature lunged, forming a river of shadow that surged toward him, icy and consuming. Doug couldn't think. Instinct kicked in as he lunged to his feet, hurling himself toward her. He could almost feel the darkness dripping away from him, its venomous tendrils snapping at his heels. Would he reach her in time? The question burned in his mind, urging him forward as he plunged into the heart of the darkness. But just as he thought he had her, something unexpected happened. A blinding light erupted from within the woods, illuminating the very heart of the night, revealing secrets that could change everything. What truth awaited them in the blaze? Would they be able to escape, or was this where the final choice would be made? The blinding light forced Doug to shield his eyes, the glow transforming the clearing into a surreal spectacle, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. He could feel the intense heat radiating from the source, pushing back the shadows that had encased them in terror. He didn't dare take his eyes off Cassandra, though, who appeared frail and ghost-like just beyond the oppressive darkness. "Doug, we have to go?" Cassandra's voice cracked through the chaos, urgent and filled with a fear that gripped him tightly. The dark tendrils writhed as they recoiled from the light. It was a small victory, but he knew it wouldn't last. "Cassandra!" he shouted, his heart thundering. He sprinted toward her, legs screaming with exhaustion, yet propelled by adrenaline. Yet the darkness didn't stay still. It began to writhe again, sensing their escape that a howl erupted from the depths of the woods, raw and desperate. Shadows coalesced into a monstrous form, twisting and writhing like a serpent. Doug felt sick with fear. He reached out for Cassandra, fingers brushing against her pale skin. He pulled her close. But the moment felt unsteady as the dark figure lunged, snapping at them with hunger. "Run!" he shouted, pulling her away from the threat. Together, they darted back toward the light, but the clearing shifted, the ground changing beneath their feet like a living entity. The radiant glow flickered, dimming as shadows seeped back to reclaim what they had lost. Doug stumbled, gripping Cassandra tighter. "We can't let it take you." The reality of her being trapped again sent adrenaline surging through him. "Doug, please." Something flickered in her eyes, glimmers of something unnameable. What if I'm one of them?" Panic knotted his stomach. "You're not. You're here. I won't let that happen." As they reached the edge of the light, shadows reached out. They were just inches away, fingers poised to grasp, but something held them back. The whispers grew louder, filled with anger and loss. "Cassandra," they echoed, taunting her. "Stay with me," Doug gasped, pulling her away from the shadows. Just then the creature lunged again, jaws wide, and he felt the icy breath wash over him. It would devour them both if he didn't act fast. With a burst of instinct, Doug turned and yelled into the darkness. "I won't let you take her." His voice reverberated through the air, carrying a truth deep inside him. In that moment, the light flared brighter, becoming a shield against the encroaching night. The dark creature let out an agonized wail, its form twitching as if caught in a storm. Doug grasped Cassandra's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of her pulse. "Now, while it's distracted," he cried. Steeling himself, he dashed toward the heart of the glow. They raced together as the shadows shrieked and clawed at the light, but it held, their only sanctuary. The barrier shimmered like glass, but it crackled ominously as they approached, blindingly bright, yet fragile. Doug felt an inkling of doubt, briefly wondering what lay on the other side. "Will we make it?" Cassandra panted beside him. "Trust me," he replied, determination surging through his veins. As they reached the threshold, they could feel the dark tendrils shredding at their ankles, trying to pull them back. With one last burst of energy, they leapt just as the shadows reached out in desperation. An explosion of light swept around them as they crossed into the unknown. The world twisted and swirled, and the sound of shattering darkness burst around them like a glass jar falling. When they landed, breathless and gasping, they found themselves in another clearing, yet this one felt different. The darkness remained at the edges, but the air was thick with something palpable, an energy that vibrated against their skin. What just happened? Cassandra looked around, bewildered but alive. Doug's heart raced as he took stock of their surroundings. In the center, a stone altar pulsed with the same glow from before, casting an inviting yet eerie illumination. It was adorned with strange symbols that hummed with power, pulling him closer. "Cassandra, look at this." Just then, the edges of the clearing began to shift again, shadows creeping closer. They weren't safe. "Doug," she gasped, eyes wide with fear. "What have we done?" The darkness shifted into shapes again, forming into something definable, something seeking them with intent. Would they have the answers they desperately needed before the darkness reclaimed its prize? As Doug felt the chill creeping closer, he knew there was no going back. The battle wasn't over, everything hinged on their next move. What they uncovered in this new world could either spell their doom or offer the salvation they sought. The time for answers was now. Doug inhaled sharply, the crackle of energy washing over them like static electricity. The altar's glow bathed their faces in an unnatural hue, illuminating the shadows creeping toward them. Each blink of the light felt like a countdown, and they had to act fast. "Cassandra, we need to figure out what this place is," he whispered, trying to keep his voice steady, though his heart raced like a freight train. The symbols on the altar pulsed in rhythm with the thrum of the energy around them, offering a strange comfort amid rising desperation. Cassandra edged closer to the base of the altar, her curiosity piqued despite the threat lurking just beyond the boundary of light. "Maybe these symbols mean something, maybe they can help us." Before he could process her words, the shadows quivered, transforming into a figure tall, menacing, with edges that blurred like smoke. Doug's pulse quickened as he shielded Cassandra from the threat, every instinct screaming to protect her. "Stay behind me," he warned, bravely stepping forward. "Doug, wait," she pleaded, her eyes wide with panic. What if it knows something about me? About what is happening?" The figure solidified, its voice echoing with an otherworldly, melodic lilt. "You both tread upon sacred ground, you awaken forces long forgotten, long forgotten?" Doug repeated, feeling a chill creep up his spine. "What do you mean? We're not here to stir anything up. Just let us go." The shadows shifted, swirling like restless spirits, and from within them came whispers, swirling around like a gentle wind, yet laced with spite. "You cannot escape your fate, Cassandra. You are one of us." Cassandra recoiled, a tremor racing through her. "No, I don't belong here." Doug clenched his fists. "She is not one of you. She is my friend." The altar flickered as a blinding light surged from its core, amplifying the atmosphere thick with energy. "To understand the truth, you must sacrifice that which you hold most dear." Panic surged through Doug, crystallizing his thoughts. What does that even mean? The figure moved closer, its eyes glowing with an unsettling brightness. "To save her, you must relinquish your memories of her, the bond you share." Doug's heart dropped. The very idea felt like ripping his soul apart. "No, I won't do that." Cassandra stepped forward, her face pale but determined. What if it's the only way? "Doug, if it helps you understand what is happening, maybe we have to consider it." "Cassandra, no." Despair twisted in his gut as he reached for her. "I can't lose you. Not now, not ever." The shadows swarmed violently, howling in approval as if they thrived on the tension between them. "Choose. Choose now." Every instinct in Doug screamed to fight, but the power enveloping them gnawed at his resolve. The idea of losing her forever felt unfathomable, yet the urgent atmosphere pressured him to act as darkness stalked in closer as the light shimmered, dancing with both danger and hope. Doug found himself at a crossroads between love and sacrifice. A decision loomed, echoing through the clearing. Would he renounce everything they shared just to delve into the mysteries of this haunting world? Just then, an inexplicable chill swept over them, and he spotted something lurking just out of view, a shadowy figure that resonated with familiarity. Doug whispered, a voice that twisted his heart, making him question everything just as the dark fog began to solidify into a recognizable shape. In that moment, a horrifying realization dawned on him. What if that shadow held the truth about Cassandra? What if it was her? He felt himself wavering, caught in an emotional storm that threatened to tear him apart. How could he ever choose between protecting her and knowing her truth? His heart thundered as he stood before the altar, struggling with the weight of every memory, every laugh they had shared, every moment they had fought against the darkness. Time hung in the air. He had mere seconds to make a choice that could rewrite everything. Was it too late? As the shadows encroached, Doug prepared to confront the truth in one final plea, but would it lead to healing or destruction? The atmosphere crackled with tension, and the weight of what was to come rested heavily on his shoulders. And then, right in the core of chaos, a haunting echo broke the silence, whispering a name that could shatter them both. Doug's heart raced violently, the whisper echoing in his ears. The name brushed against his consciousness like thorns, scraping against his thoughts. It felt like a warning, urgent and ominous. In the flickering light, he strained to grasp the meaning behind it. "Cassandra," he said, taking a step towards the voice. The shadow trembled, resonating with a familiarity he couldn't ignore. "Is that you?" The figure shifted, revealing fragments of a face he almost recognized, yet it wavered like smoke in the wind. "You always were so eager to chase the shadows," it murmured, its tone cutting through him like ice. "But are you ready to confront what the darkness hides?" Cassandra's eyes widened, desperation evident in her voice. "Doug, don't. We're running out of time. You have to choose." "Choose," he replied, his voice almost breaking. "Choose what? To lose you? Or to face this horror?" The spectral figure moved closer, merging the clarity of sight with an intoxicating blur. "The truth will bind you or destroy you, Doug. You must make your pledge. Your bond will either save her or seal her fate." The words wrapped around him like chains, tightening their grip with every syllable. He glanced at Cassandra. She was trembling, fear etched across her beautiful face. Despite the growing terror, her presence felt like a lighthouse amidst the storm. But would that beacon go dark if he chose wrong? The shadows were closing in, seeking to swallow them whole. Voices flickered through the haze, taunting him, whispering doubts. "This world isn't for you, Doug. The only way to save her is to give up your love. Renounce your memories, and you'll free her." "Shut up," Doug yelled, clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. "You're twisting everything. This is manipulation. Only the truth can illuminate your path," the figure replied, its tone calm, yet resonant with authority. "What will you sacrifice to unearth the secrets lying dormant in her soul?" A part of him wanted to scream, to rebel against this twisted fate, but another part, deeper and darker, couldn't help but wonder. What if this was the only way? Cassandra stepped closer, fighting against the oppressive energy. "Doug, listen to me. We can't let them win. Whatever the truth is, we can face it together." He recoiled, his heart clenched tight. "But what if that truth tears us apart? What if it means forgetting you ever existed?" The figure loomed larger, darkness cascading around it like a cloak. "Sacrifice is the key, Doug. She is tied to a world where you are merely a reflection. Would you prefer a safe memory over a painful truth?" Doug felt the ground shift beneath him as dread crept in. Could he bear living without those moments, those laughs, the very essence of Cassandra? "Choose." The shadows seemed to scream in unison, their howl bottomless. Doug inhaled sharply, every memory flooding back. The warmth of Cassandra's laughter, the way her eyes lit up with mischief, the countless nights they spent dreaming about the future together. "I want to do it. I can't," he shouted, his voice cracking. Time felt suspended, a taut string ready to snap. The air thickened with tension as he prepared for the choice that would change everything. In the chaos, he sensed a flicker from the figure, a moment of vulnerability, revealing its own desperate hunger for liberation. But before he could grasp the sudden shift in energy, a shockwave erupted. The altar pulsed violently, unleashing a wave of blinding light. The shadows reeled, howling in agony as they were forced back. "Doug," Cassandra's voice cut through the storm, raw with urgency. "We need to get out of here. Trust me." In that split second, as shadows receded and light surged, Doug faced the choice of a lifetime. To embrace the unknown or flee into the safety of ignorance. Would he dare step into the abyss, or would he let fear dictate their fate? As the light flared, something shifted, sending the air swirling. Doug realized he was standing on the precipice of a choice, and the moment loomed before them, laden with heavy uncertainty. "Who are you really? Cassandra?" he breathed, and before she could answer, the light dimmed into a suffocating darkness, leaving them teetering on the brink of revelation and despair. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around Doug like a thick fog, suffocating and cold. Panic clawed at his throat as he turned back towards Cassandra. Her silhouette flickered, a fragile beacon in a consuming void. "Doug," she whispered, her voice barely a flicker against the turmoil that surrounded them. Her eyes, usually bright and full of life, were clouded with fear. "We have to trust each other. No matter what happens next, we can't let them take us." "Take us?" His heart sank. Beneath the surface of her words lurked a horrid reality he didn't want to face. Was the darkness trying to pull them apart? He clenched his jaw, unwilling to let despair seep in. "Yes," she insisted, desperation rising in her tone. "There are things you don't understand. But if we work together, stop. Just tell me what is happening." He shouted, his voice trembling with frustration. The air suddenly crackled, and he felt a jolt surge through him as the shadows trembled in response. A rumble echoed from the altar, the source of their torment, and bright flashes of light pierced the abyss. Doug's breath hitched. Each flash illuminated the walls, revealing jagged runes etched in some ancient language, glowing ominously. They felt like warnings, taunts from an unseen force. Cassandra grabbed his arm, and Doug could feel her trembling. The paleness of her skin juxtaposed the vibrancy of the runes, deepening the horror in his chest. "We can't stay here. They're coming." "Who is coming?" he demanded, panic bubbling after each rhythmic flash. But before she could respond, the air thickened with a chilling sound. A low, guttural growl resonated through the shadows, washing over him like a tidal wave. "Run!" Cassandra cried, her grip tightening as she pulled him toward a flicker of light that peeked through the darkness. In that moment, he felt the weight of his choice pressing down on him, a choice that could either reveal the truth or drown them in the void. As they dashed toward the flickering exit, Doug couldn't ignore the shadows pursuing them, reforming into monstrous shapes, their forms flickering between reality and nightmare. He could feel their icy breath at his back, licking at his heels like hungry wolves. "Keep going," Cassandra shouted, pushing him forward. Doug could barely think. Pure instinct propelled him, fueled by fear and desperation. "If we get out of here, I can tell you everything." Everything. He dared to glance back, catching a glimpse of the figure again. It was morphing, contorting in ways that defied nature, an amalgamation of dread and regret that twisted Doug's gut in knots. "What's the truth about you, Cassandra?" Trapped between a promise of revelation and a desperate need to escape, the dark entity's growl thundered again, shaking the ground beneath them. "You cannot escape your fate," it howled, its resonance making Doug's bones rattle. "You are bound by the vow you'll never fully understand." Cassandra faltered for a split second, her expression twisted in uncertainty, a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability that sent his heart racing. "Doug, you need to promise that whatever happens next, just remember our love." Before he could grasp what her words meant, a figure broke free from the shadows, a specter taller than any man should be, its eyes glowing like dying embers. Doug froze, fear rooting him to the ground. Behind Cassandra, her shape shifted, shadows writhing around her as if fighting to keep her anchored. "Cassandra," he shouted, stretching his hand toward her. "Trust me," she yelled, but her voice felt swallowed by the malevolence consuming the space between them. Then, like a flash of lightning, it struck him he knew her. This was not merely a fight for survival. It was a battle for understanding their connection, a chance to uncover the truth of who they were and what shadows haunted them. "Cassandra," he cried, ready to leap into the storm. But as he took one step toward her, something sharp pierced his side, a shock of pain unlike anything else. Doug stumbled, his vision blurring as he felt the entity's grip pulling him apart, and as darkness enveloped him, echoing Cassandra's name in the void, a single thought pierced the chaos. "What have I done?" Silence fell, suffocating the air around them. The heaviness lingered, leaving only shadows and echoes. What if the cost of truth was too steep to pay? And what if the revelation awaited him in a place more terrifying than darkness itself? The darkness felt thick enough to slice, wrapping around Doug like a heavy cloak. He struggled to breathe, the bitter air filling his lungs with an agonizing chill. He was lost in blackness, but somewhere, buried within the murk, he registered other sounds: whimpers, echoes, cries. Cassandra's voice pierced through it all, faint but unwavering. "Doug!" It came again, this time filled with a desperation that jolted him awake. "Don't give in." Suddenly, clarity surged through him. Doug forced himself to gather his strength, fighting against the grip of despair that sought to snuff him out. The wretched whispers of the shadows began to reach for him again, curling around his limbs like skeletal hands. But he wouldn't be a victim. He couldn't let that happen. "Cassandra," he rasped, feeling shards of warmth trim the edges of the cold. "I'm coming." He pushed forward, willing himself to find her in the void. As he moved, an unearthly energy began to coalesce, like sparks igniting a long-forgotten fire. The shadows lurked menacingly, but he could feel them weakening beneath a newfound determination. Doug surged toward the sound of her voice, fingers brushing against something, the cool surface of stone. The altar. With a surge of adrenaline, he reached it. Instinctively, He pressed his palms against the ancient engravings. Light exploded beneath his touch, illuminating the swirling darkness like a beacon. Each shadow hissed and recoiled, their haunting shrieks echoing against the stone, and in that instant, Doug felt a connection to Cassandra, a tether that pulsed warmly through the cold. "Cassandra, are you there?" he called out, straining against the chaos surrounding him. "Yes, just a little further. I can feel you." Her voice rang out, clearer now, drawing him toward her with fierce urgency. The glow intensified, revealing the outline of her figure amidst the shadows. She was struggling against it, but alive. "Stay with me." Hurriedly, he focused on the symbols pulsing beneath his hands, willing the energy to reshape itself. Deep breath, digging deep, the whispers morphed into wails, and he channeled their cries, melding them into one unified push. "Leave her be," he yelled, the words tasting like power on his tongue. "Let her go?" In that moment, the energy surged once more, the light radiant and consuming. The dark figures let out howls that echoed in agony, vaporizing in the explosive brilliance. He reached out, willing the light to carry his voice. "If we're going to break the bonds, we'll do it together." His heart raced as he saw her moving toward him, shadows ripping away from her like a worn-out cloak. Their fingers brushed a fleeting touch, but it sent shards of warmth flooding through him, igniting memories of their laughter and dreams. "This is it," Doug declared. "We will not let them keep you. We will be the light." With a final surge, the light twisted, forming a protective halo around them. Within that shield, Doug felt connected and firm, as if every moment of love and strength they had shared condensed into this powerful cry against the dark. For a brief second, everything stilled. The shadows clawed at the edges of their barrier, shrieking in fury, but the light refused to yield. And then, with one final roar, Doug released everything: his fears, his doubts, the very essence of who he was, intertwining it with Cassandra's strength, waiting just beyond him. The energies collided in a radiant burst, exploding through the shadows like shrapnel catching fire to the night. The shadows screamed one last time, a chorus of anguish that rang out through the void, and then it was gone. Doug rapidly blinked against the brightness, suddenly aware of the gentle rustle of leaves and the cool breeze brushing against his skin. He was outside, in the woods, bathed in the soft light of the moon. They had done it. They were free. "Cassandra," he breathed, turning to see her standing beside him. She looked ethereal, a reflection of the moon, but solid, present, and alive. "Doug." She rushed to him, engulfing him in a fierce embrace. "We did it." They stood there, held in each other's arms like they had defied fate itself. All the tension, fear, and shadows melted under the weight of their victory. "What now?" Doug whispered, breathless, scanning the calm woods. "We keep moving forward, together," she replied, drawing away just enough to meet his gaze, her eyes sparkling with renewed hope. And despite the crumbling past, the oppression they had just escaped, a fragile strand of hope blossomed. They took each other's hands, stepping back onto the path illuminated by the moonlight. One step at a time. Together they would face whatever came next. The world lay vast before them, full of unknowns, joys, and hurdles, but it was theirs to explore, free from the shackles of the night. As they ventured deeper into the woods, arms entwined, a rush of peace washed over Doug. They had confronted the darkness, and though each whispered rule still echoed faintly in the back of their minds, he knew they wouldn't be haunted by it. They emerged stronger, more connected, ready to reclaim their lives. And with one last look back, he felt the heaviness lift. They were free. Now, if you love this thrilling conclusion, make sure you don't miss anything else we bring your way. You need to subscribe now and join our family. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and support our storytelling. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about this wild journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more amazing stories.